Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fearless Now. Joining me today is Brittany Miller, our head of business operations, and one of the people that actually came with me to the NFT conference. So we're both wearing our NFT swag, which brings us to our topic for today, which is NFTs and the future. We at Fearless believe in making sure that we are well versed and knowledgeable and curious and interested in these trends. And there's a lot of talk around when Facebook changed their name to Meta, and we're hearing all of these new terms from blockchain and crypto and metaverse and NFTs and what the future is like. So we thought we would check it out. So it was a 3-day conference in New York City. The Fearless team, we were so grateful to attend. We even got interviewed on the spot to talk about our take on NFTs. There were 600 speakers. There were 5,500 tickets that were sold, and it had a 3,000 person waiting list. So we wanted to give our audience our takeaways from that momentous week for NFTs. And for those of you that might not even be aware of what NFTs are, those are non-fungible tokens. We're going to get into some of that as well. So personally, I've been in the blockchain and crypto space since 2014, but I do acknowledge that the mass public may not be as well versed on some of the technical nuances of this. And so Brittany and I are going to share, our views and certainly her views. Brittany, you were pretty new to the NFT world. Is that right?
Yes, it was pretty new for me, but I think what was great about the conference was that I felt like they had information for all levels. So I think that there was a lot of really great information for somebody like me who is really new to the space, but also I think really engaging for a lot of people that have been in the space for a very long time. It was a really great experience. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, let's talk about those 5 key takeaways, right? So one of which, this particular area, because it's so new and novel and sometimes scary because you don't know what you don't know, and everything is moving so fast and the rules are changing and regulation and all kinds of stuff. The one big thing is that there has to be, sort of the power of evangelism. So you have people like Gary Vee, Alexis Ohanian from Reddit, to Beeple, to Fabien Vogelstellar. There were some amazing people that were, pioneers in the space, people that actually created code that understand the blockchain at its very core. And I think one of the big things that I took away from these evangelists were, they come from all types of backgrounds. Beeple bought something for, I don't know, an NFT for 69 million, which was like setting a world record. So anyway, we're going to come back to that in just a minute. The second thing was Ethereum is king. And that was one of the key takeaways from this conference, only because, it was all about sort of, these various blockchains that are servicing the NFT industry. But it felt like the undisputed king is still Ethereum. And, I think our talk with Fabien and others that kind of locked that in for us in terms of understanding smart contracts and things like that. Third was the metaverse. Everybody's talking about the metaverse. And so everyone in NFT land is talking about a metaverse. It was first coined by Neil Stevenson, I believe. And it was the concept of a new digital existence. And so NFTs are seen as kind of this property right and building block for that new idea. So now, Mark Zuckerberg comes out and says we're renaming Facebook to Meta, and sort of claiming to build, the metaverse. So there's a lot to unpack there, which Brittany and I will be doing in just a second. The fourth one was the power of celebrity. So a lot of these platforms that are facing sort of the reality that there has to be centralization of power in art and entertainment, and all of this really lies in the power of celebrity. And it was really brought home when Brittany and I were invited to a super secret, session with Quentin Tarantino, and a panel of and sort of a distinct panel of individuals that were kind of talking about Pulp Fiction's NFT drop and what that meant for the movie industry, what that meant for directors and creators, and so on and so forth. And then lastly, Brittany, why don't you talk about number 5, which I thought was a real big one?
Yeah, a huge theme of the conference was ownership, and how NFTs and the blockchain in general really allow for creators to become and really remain the owners of the things that they create. So, art and music, how is this going to allow a lot of the power to remain with those creators? And that was a really, really big point that was discussed by a number of panels, because it allows a lot of the benefits, from selling this art, making money off of that, to really remain with the artist, which is a shift that everyone is very excited about.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So for all of you that were really curious about NFTs, and you might have been walking around Times Square and looking at all these, what is it, crypto kitties and crypto punks and all of that, we found, and by the way, so my husband, who's in the investment management industry, is always curious about these things. So as soon as I came back from the NFT conference, and he had a little bit of he also attended some of the sessions, he was like, look, I'm coming from a traditional background. How can I get myself smart on NFTs? And so we thought that this book by Shelley Palmer, and we'll be posting the link in our text here, but Shelley Palmer does a really good job explaining blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFTs, and smart contracts. And so we think this is going to be a really good read. It's really easy, and really kind of defining some of the key things that you should know, like digital wallets, encrypting your crypto, and all of these things. So new terms that you just simply don't know about. They've done a very good job just explaining it to you. So I think this is a great book for anyone to kind of pick up. It's a super easy read, just honestly, just definition. The one thing that I want to talk about, at the conference, which I thought was really interesting, was there is a big sort of, I want to say a little bit of a confusion when it comes to sort of blockchain and smart contracts, and everyone lumping in, cryptocurrencies and NFTs and everything all in one pot. But the idea that we kind of took away was the blockchain is sort of the very foundation for these smart contracts, for you to have, NFTs with those smart contracts, or cryptocurrencies on the blockchain. Some of these ideas are separate, but I think the mass public is kind of receiving these new terms all at once, and they're lumping it all in one place. So, Brittany, curious as to, what did you think of it going into the conference, and then coming out of it, what did you learn?
Yeah, so I think it's a really good point that there are all these different terms, and they kind of all get smashed together. And I think it makes it more confusing. It's a barrier to entry at the moment. That's kind of how it felt at first, right? But I think that the biggest takeaway that I think I got from the conference was that NFTs, they're an interesting concept, but the fact that they're built on the blockchain is really the huge, really exciting piece, because it's a way to kind of get the mass market to understand the real value of the blockchain and the transparency that it brings, like what that can do for different industries. The NFTs are just like a really exciting kind of cool way for people to become introduced to that. And then, like you said, pick up the book on the blockchain, because that's something that you should know. So it's going to get people to really understand why this industry, I think, has been growing so rapidly over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so I think, really in summary, there's a couple of things. One, this is something that's not really going away. If you've been focused on the crypto markets, you see sort of the value of Bitcoin and other coins go up in value day after day, even though I'm sure there's some macroeconomists that are going to talk about inflation and, what that means for sort of the macroeconomy in general. But I think that, the blockchain is a very smart technology. That's sort of the technology of the future, and it should be sort of the baseline in which we operate, especially when it comes to smart contracts. I'll give sort of a really simple view of how I understood NFTs from someone like Gary Vee, right? Gary Vee put out Vee Friends and, these NFTs that somebody can buy. So while there is digital value in that particular drawing that he has, that digital art piece that he has, there is value in owning that, because when you kind of unpack that, part of that smart contract, the value is that you could potentially have, whatever he put in that smart contract, you can have dinner with Gary Vee once a year. So if you own that digital art from Gary Vee, it comes with that smart contract of, hey, each year, on this date, you get to have, a dinner or a meeting with Gary Vee. So similar to when Quentin Tarantino thought about, sort of the Pulp Fiction NFT drop, he was thinking that, someone that owns the digital, art of that scene where, John Travolta and Samuel Jackson with the guns pointing, that, yes, you can right click save, but someone that owns that original piece may have access to the original script that Quentin was giving away with it, and maybe dinner with Quentin on the anniversary of Pulp Fiction, right? And so there are things that are, sort of real tangible value attached to those smart contracts that you would also have with that digital ownership of that NFT.
And I was just going to say, I think that brings it back to that ownership. That was just that huge theme, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, you can save it and save that image, but it's not the same as ownership. And that ownership will allow you exclusive access to things that other people will not have. So.
And then the other sort of very simple thing that I took away that I'll talk about is just it gives power in the hands of the creators. So I think that personally, NFTs is going to revolutionize sort of the arts and media industries, at least at the onset, and then other industries will follow suit. So, we talked to, we heard a panel about, Pepsi and other companies, thinking about NFTs and how is it going to build their brand and so on and so forth. That's really kind of further into the future. But let's talk about the art world. Let's say you are the creator of the Mona Lisa or something like that, and it has there's an attachment to an NFT, or you've created an attachment to an NFT. Now, every time that art is sold or transferred hands, creator still collects a royalty. It's not a just one and done final transaction, right? Which I thought was really, really cool. So if I created something, I'm kind of, just like any song that's being played on the radio and there's royalties attached to it, the blockchain allows you to transparently track change of hands in ownership, which is pretty cool, right? Because then someone else can't claim and say, well, I own it, or, this is mine. It's all right there, on the blockchain. So anyway, super cool stuff. Pick up the book. We'll put the link in. And I guess lastly, I'll say that at Fearless, we are also considering how to incorporate the blockchain for our Fearless cohort. So stay tuned, sign up for our newsletter. We're going to be dropping some interesting content around NFTs, but then also how Fearless is going to be interacting on the blockchain. So with that said, anything else from your side?
No, I'm just very excited to see how, we incorporate that. It's going to be a fun couple of months, I think.
Exactly. Well, with that, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, and have a fearless day.